Remember when a teacher got fired for the one thing he ever did right, and the whole class answered by climbing onto their desks to tell him so? Well, that was Dead Poets Society. Touchstone Pictures released it in 1989, and it had every ingredient of an award season drama that nobody remembers 5 years later. A boarding school, some poetry, and a lot of tweed. Robin Williams plays Keating, the English teacher telling rich teenage boys to toss the syllabus. Robert Sean Leonard is Neil Perry, chasing an acting career that his father already vetoed. Then you've got Ethan Hawke's Todd Anderson, who's too shy to finish a sentence, let alone a poem, and Josh Charles is Knox Overstreet, hopelessly in love with a girl whose boyfriend looks like he plays linebacker on the weekends. Kurtwood Smith and Norman Lloyd round out the adults standing in everyone's way. And today we're going to count down 15 weird facts that you didn't know about Dead Poets Society. And stick around for number 1, because the movie's most devastating shot came from the actor playing the traitor, not the screenwriter. But before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe. Gather ye subscribers while ye may. Let's go rip a page out of the textbook. Number 15, the dance movie This Almost Became. Disney had a version of this movie sitting in a vault somewhere with zero poetry in it, and they almost made that one instead. Tom Schulman wrote the spec script in 1985. Disney bought it 2 years later, and the notes came back fast. Cut the poetry, add some dancing, and change the name. Some accounts call the new title Sultans of Swing, others say Sultans of Strut, but nobody agrees on the word, but everyone agrees on the plan. You ditch the 7 students and build the whole thing around Keating. Basically Fame with a headmaster. Schulman showed up to his first meeting, braced for a fight. Katzenberg beat him to it. He read through the notes while the room waited, looked up at his own executives, and asked if they weren't throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Then, he tossed the stack and told everyone that they were shooting the script that Schulman already wrote. So somewhere in a Disney file cabinet, there's a Dead Poets Society where nobody stands on a desk and nobody recites Whitman. They just cut a rug. Shoo-wee, I'm glad that one never left the drawer. Number 14, the blizzard that changed the movie. The most heartbreaking scene in this movie, it wasn't planned. The weather wrote it. They were supposed to shoot at Berry College in Georgia until somebody ran the numbers on faking snow across an entire campus and realized that Georgia doesn't reliably make its own. So the production packed up for Delaware, chasing one thing: real snow for free. Then the snow showed up on the very worst day possible. Or maybe the best one, depending on how you look at it. The scene where Todd learns that Neil is dead was supposed to happen indoors, alone, in a dorm bathroom. A blizzard hit St. Andrew's School the morning that they were set to shoot. So Weir scrapped the interior setup, sent Ethan Hawke running outside in his pajamas, and had the rest of the Dead Poets chase after him. Just one take. Todd's grief stopped being a solo scene. Every one of the boys ended up standing in it with him. Nobody blocked that shot. Nobody storyboarded it. It just happened to be falling out of the sky that very morning. Number 13, Delaware got paid in $2 bills. For a stretch in late 1988, Delaware had a strange little problem. $2 bills kept showing up everywhere. $8 million. That's what one modest Disney drama poured into a state that Hollywood never normally bothers with. For a movie that never once says the word Delaware out loud, it's set in Vermont. Filming ran about 10 weeks across Middletown, Newcastle, and Wilmington, and pulled in more than 1,000 locals as extras, scouts, and crew. Part of that crew pay went out in $2 bills, which is exactly why they started turning up in cash registers and tip jars across the state. That's not an accounting glitch. The studio wanted everyone watching that money move through local businesses, one purchase at a time. So somewhere in Delaware right now, 30-odd years later, there's still a $2 bill in a drawer that traces back to a movie about teenage poets. Number 12, the old school tie that sold the movie. Tom Schulman's own agent read the script, called it the best thing he'd ever written, and then in the same breath told him, go find a different agent, because you'll never be able to sell this. The title didn't help. Dead Poets Society. 3 of the worst words that you could put on a marquee. But that was the whole package. An all-boys prep school, the 1950s, no sex, no explosions, and not one hit boarding school movie to point at. So it sat. 2 years, no takers. Until producer Stephen Haft, who couldn't get the thing out of his head, optioned it for $500 on pure gut. Haft had one thing that the script didn't. He had gone to prep school with Jeffrey Katzenberg, the exec running Disney's Touchstone label. Disney had already passed on it once. Haft slid it back onto Katzenberg's desk anyway, and this time he read it and bought it inside a day. Talent wrote this movie, but an old school tie got it made. Number 11, Disney torched the sets and started over. The cameras were ready. The star never showed. Before Peter Weir, this movie had a different director already locked in. Jeff Canoe, fresh off Revenge of the Nerds, who wanted Liam Neeson as Keating. Disney wanted Robin Williams, riding his Oscar nomination for Good Morning Vietnam. Williams wouldn't say no to the part, he just wouldn't say yes to Canoe. Disney pushed into pre-production anyway. They built the sets outside Atlanta, set a schedule, and waited on a star who never actually committed. Day one, Williams didn't show. So Disney scrapped the production and burned the sets to the ground. According to Schulman, the dailies from that day include footage of the fire. Then it sat. For movies, the month was dead. Mel Gibson passed, Dustin Hoffman signed on to direct and star before a fight over the start date killed that version too. It came back only when Katzenberg caught Weir heading out of a Disney meeting and handed him the script. Weir was hooked by the title, read it on the flight to Sydney, and then landed already committed. 6 weeks later, and he was in LA casting. So Disney burned down a whole production and churned through a lineup of would-be Keatings, all because Williams didn't click with one director. Hand him the right one, and he said yes on the first ask. Number 10, Keating almost had a death sentence in the script. In Tom Schulman's original screenplay, there's a reason that Keating is so obsessed with seizing the day. He's dying. The script had the boys visiting him in the hospital, slowly losing him to lymphoma, a reveal built to explain his whole philosophy in one scene. But Peter Weir wanted it gone. He told Schulman flat out, you lose the hospital scene or he wouldn't direct the picture. His reasoning was simple. You keep the illness and the audience walks out thinking about a dying man. Cut it and they think about what he taught. Schulman dug in. He lost. And that one cut changed what the whole ending means. If Keating were dying, the boys climbing onto their desks would just be a goodbye, the kind that you give anyone on their way out. But because he isn't, it becomes something even bigger. A room full of kids standing up for what the man taught them. So the finished movie never explains Keating. No backstory, no diagnosis, no reason. His philosophy has to stand on its own. So do the boys when they finally rise to their feet. Number 9, the real Keating? He was just bored. The real Mr. Keating didn't teach from behind a lectern. By his own account, he sometimes taught from inside the classroom garbage can. Schulman built Keating out of 2 real teachers. Harold Clurman handed him the big rousing speeches, and Sam Pickering, his 10th grade English teacher at Montgomery Bell Academy in Nashville, handed him the stunts. And Pickering's explanation for the trash can routine, decades later, came with 0 grand philosophy attached. He did it to entertain himself, not to awaken anybody. But by the time a reporter tracked him down, he was a University of Connecticut professor, mildly amused that his old bits had somehow ended up in a Robin Williams movie. He taught Schulman for exactly 1 year before leaving for grad school. He never set out to become the blueprint for one of cinema's most beloved teachers. He just liked making class more interesting. And one kid, he never forgot it. Number 8, the scene the actors invented. Todd unwraps his birthday present and finds a leather desk set, the exact same one that his parents gave him the year before. A minute later, he and Neil are hurling it off a rooftop, cracking up as it goes over the edge. That's not what was on the page. As written, the scene went the entire other way. Todd confesses that his father used to call him 598, the going rate for all chemicals in a human body if you bottled them up and sold them. That, Dad said, was all that Todd was worth. Weir and Schulman both knew that moment played a little too heavy, and neither had cracked how to fix it. Then, Hawke and Leonard fixed it for them. A day or two before the shoot, they brought Weir an idea. What if we skip the confession and just launch the desk straight off the roof? Weir shot it exactly as they pitched. Turns out the fastest way to improve a leather desk set is to introduce it to gravity. None of it came from Schulman's script. One of the warmest, funniest beats in the whole movie exists because 2 actors looked at a scene that wasn't landing and then quietly rewrote it themselves. All right, quick pause. If you've ever caught yourself standing on a chair for no real reason after watching this movie, don't worry, you're safe here. But tell me in the comments. And if you're enjoying this one, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Now let's go find out what Peter Weir was hiding from his own studio. Number 7, Weir snuck a whole scene past the front office. Early in filming, Weir had a problem. Robin Williams, sticking exactly to the script, comes across as stiff. It wasn't landing. So Weir does something drastic. He books an unscheduled half-day shoot and kept it hidden from Disney's front office. 3 cameras go up in corners of the room. Minutes before it starts, he lays out the plan for the cast. Robin's coming in after lunch to teach a scene that isn't in the script. He's still Mr. Keating, it's still 1959, and nobody laughs like they're watching stand-up or they're gonna wreck the take. His only note to Williams, just teach the class whatever you want. So Williams goes with Shakespeare. launching into impressions of John Wayne and Marlon Brando, reciting the bard while his students, under orders to stay in character, try not to visibly lose it. That footage becomes Keating's real first classroom scene in the finished film, built from a shoot that officially never happened. Producers later estimated close to 15% of Williams' dialogue was ad-libbed. The bigger win was finding the actual Keating, funny enough to surprise the boys, but never so funny that he stopped feeling like their teacher. Weir went back to that same instinct a decade later on The Truman Show. Turn the comedian loose and just kind of see what sticks. Jim Carrey took it and ran. The now famous bathroom mirror bit, Spaceman and all, was his own improvisation, start to finish. Number 6, Ebert gave it 2 stars and a gag reflex. 1 Oscar. That's the entire haul that Dead Poets Society walked away with in 1990, despite nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor. Tom Schulman's screenplay was the only thing that actually won. Everywhere else, love poured in. The American Film Institute ranked it number 52 on its list of the 100 most inspiring films ever made, and slotted, "Seize the day, boys, make your lives extraordinary," at 95 on its greatest movie quotes list. Opening weekend, audiences handed it a rare A+ cinema score, the grade usually saved for blockbusters, not quiet period dramas about boarding school poetry. Not everyone was on board. Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, 2 of my favorite critics to make fun of on this channel, went on TV that same season and said that they would have swapped Williams' nomination for Matt Dillon and Drugstore Cowboy or John Cusack and Say Anything. On a separate special where they picked their own winners, Ebert called the Best Picture nomination the worst of the year, arguing that the slot should have gone to Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. And in his actual published review, 2 stars out of 4. He dropped the line that's followed this movie for 35 years. Watching those kids climb onto their desks made him want to throw up. The critics never agreed. Audiences didn't need convincing, though, because the movie pulled in more than $235 million worldwide. Proof that the loudest standing ovation, it doesn't need to come from a syndicated critics column, it just has to come from inside the theater. Number 5, Taylor Swift got the Poets back together. 35 years after playing 2 heartsick prep school kids, Ethan Hawke and Josh Charles turned up together again, on purpose, inside a Taylor Swift music video. Swift was releasing the Tortured Poets Department, and the title similarity clearly wasn't lost on her. She cast the 2 of them in the video for her single, Fortnight, as lab-coated scientists, Dr. Anderson and Dr. Overstreet, straight off Todd Anderson and Knox Overstreet. Charles admitted his first reaction was assuming that Hawke was pranking him. Swift announced the reunion on social media, joking that her tortured poets were finally meeting their colleagues from down the hall, the Dead Poets. The song spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, meaning 2 actors best known for a boarding school drama from 1989 spent part of 2024 sitting inside one of the biggest pop culture moments of the year. Doesn't Taylor have an album called 1989? Anyways, the coincidences are too much, but the Dead Poets, they didn't stay dead for long. They just needed 35 years and a Taylor Swift video. Number 4, Norman Lloyd outlasted everyone in the room. Norman Lloyd played Nolan, the humorless headmaster standing for everything that Keating fights against. He was 74 during filming and already was sitting on one of the longest, strangest resumes in Hollywood history, with no plans to stop. He was a founding member of Orson Welles' Mercury Theater and played in its landmark 1937 Julius Caesar, eventually outliving every other member of that original troupe. In 1939, he followed Welles' company to Hollywood for what was supposed to be Orson Welles' first film. That project collapsed, and Lloyd went home to New York before Welles settled on his next one. Just a little movie called Citizen Kane. The actors who stuck around got in it, and Lloyd called it the biggest regret of his life. Alfred Hitchcock handed him his first big screen role, the saboteur who plunges off the Statue of Liberty in Saboteur. Years later, when the blacklist came for Lloyd's career, Hitchcock overrode the studio and brought him onto his TV series anyway. No explanation offered beyond wanting him there. He co-starred with Charlie Chaplin in Limelight and spent decades playing tennis against Chaplin, Joseph Cotton, and Spencer Tracy, quietly running the most star-studded doubles game in all of town. By the time that he turned up as headmaster Nolan, he had logged more than half a century in the business, and he still wasn't done. He turned 100 the same year the movie turned 25, and Los Angeles made November 8th Norman Lloyd Day. Then he booked another movie, Judd Apatow's Trainwreck, at 99. He died in 2021 at 106, just shy of a full century in show business. So next time Nolan barks about tradition, honor, discipline, excellence, all that, remember who's saying it. That's a man who spent his life around Hollywood's biggest rule breakers, who survived a blacklist that ended other careers cold and outlasted nearly all of them. Number 3, they proved the book's point. In 2015, a pastor in Jerseyville, Illinois, filed a formal complaint with the school district about a book that he said was teaching kids to disrespect the adults in their lives. The book in question? That was Nancy Kleinbaum's novelization of Dead Poets Society, published the same year as the movie. The complaint zeroed in on the book's attitude toward authority, accusing it of turning kids against their teachers. The district reviewed it, kept the book on the shelves, and logged the whole thing as an official challenge anyway. Somehow, the movie about teaching great books turned into one of the books that adults actually argued over. Sit with that for a second. A story about thinking for yourself, even when authority says otherwise, got challenged by someone who understood that message well enough to try pulling it from a school library. It makes you wonder what Keating would have said. He probably would have said something that would have landed him right back in Nolan's office. Number 2, the scene that got parodied by a ceiling fan. 27 years after the movie made a generation of teachers cry, Saturday Night Live turned the most sacred scene into a decapitation joke, and fans still call it one of the best sketches the show had ever done. The 2016 season finale, hosted by former cast member Fred Armisen, ran a pre-taped short called Farewell, Mr. Bunting, a dead-straight recreation of Keating's classroom send-off, stiff dialogue and all. Writer Colin Jost has said the whole bit started when a colleague pitched a Dead Poets Society sketch, and Jost immediately pictured one image: a kid standing on his desk getting clocked by the ceiling fan. Now that image became the entire sketch. Student after student rises to salute their fired teacher, right up until Pete Davidson's character stands and does exactly what you're bracing for: blood everywhere. And Armisen, completely unbothered by the carnage, gathers up his box and strolls out with a chipper little cheer from the school. Like a kid's head didn't just come clean off. The joke only works because the sketch spends almost its entire runtime convincing you that it's a faithful tribute, before yanking the rug out in the last few seconds. Even one of cinema's most emotional endings survived getting turned into one of television's bloodiest punchlines. And number 1, the traitor who rewrote his own betrayal. In Tom Schulman's original script, every member of the Dead Poets Society stands on his desk for the fired Keating. All of them, no exceptions. But that's not what made it on screen. In the finished film, one boy stays seated: Richard Cameron, the kid who sold out the whole group to save himself. He watches everyone around him rise and never moves. It's the quietest gut punch in the movie, and it wasn't in the script. It came from Dylan Kussman, the actor who played Cameron, and he pitched it before he even had the role. Still auditioning, sitting across from Weir in a casting meeting, Kussman told the director the ending was wrong. Cameron had just betrayed these people to save his own skin. He wouldn't suddenly climb on a desk and defy Nolan for Keating, and Weir, he didn't argue. He agreed on the spot. Everyone remembers who stood up. Funny how you never forget that one guy who didn't. And that single call finishes Cameron's arc. Every other poet defies Nolan by the end. Cameron never does, and it lands like the most carefully written beat in the film. Except nobody wrote it. An actor who hadn't even been cast yet understood the character better than the page did. And there you have it, everyone. 15 weird facts about Dead Poets Society. Which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe right now, and be sure to send this to a friend who still stands on furniture every time they need a pep talk. They'll know exactly why. Until next time, oh Captain, my Captain, this is Remember When.